Let's go.
All right, I got boom. Hey, I'm gonna zoom you in just a little bit, tighten this
All
shot
right.
up. Bam. All right. What's up, man? As you can see, the police are outside my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're not outside my house. It's my light right here, boy.
Oh, woo-hoo. I like
So
that.
we gonna get deeper in this as we talk in the show. But let me go ahead and bring the show in. Those who were logged in and are catching us, but they just starting out. So we just coming in. But we'll dive again deeper in that. So we'll
Yes.
play that on the people when more people get hop on. But let's go
Okay.
ahead and open the show up. Um, so we could talk about what it is we're going to talk about today. And hey, welcome to the Saturday morning indie industry shop talk. I'm your host, Michael Melvin. We're here talking about the Black Filmmakers Lounge. This is where you're hanging out with it. It's independent filmmakers where novice and professionals come together to gain insight and perspective through education, information, networking to discuss industry best practices that will advance the Black interdependent film community. I'm your host, Michael Melvin. Tamira TK Henderson is on break, but my boy DP Jacobi Simmons is here to hang out, and it's been a minute since he's hung out. And it was good to have you, my brother. We gotta give you the
Oh yes, the Jamaican air horn, baby. I needed that.
What's up, bruh?
Ain't nothing, man. I've been hustling, man. Working, grad school, kids, life. You know.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. No, I definitely understand, man. We've been doing some stuff at work with our students for capstone. Um, my light's not on because I was doing a little something earlier, playing with it. And if you're joining us, good morning, good morning, good morning. Man, I'm gonna go ahead and post this in a couple places while we talking. But you
Okay.
know how we normally open the show up. We ask people what you've been watching. So have you been watching anything this week?
So here's my wife got me on a guilty pleasure, 90-Day Fiance. But I'm gonna leave that go there. But I'm gonna move on. So I think as we talk about this, I think Apple TV has
Mm-hmm.
some of the best programming for streaming services.
Okay.
Right now, I'm watching Ted Lasso.
Uh-huh.
They have a show on it. Was this little movie called Ghosted.
Oh, okay.
Captain America now. What's his name again? I'm getting
Chris
bad.
Evans. Chris
Chris
Evans.
Evans is in it, and
Mm-hmm.
he's still like, even though he's playing like a nerdy guy, he's not playing anybody different. It would be
Okay.
like if Cap fell in love. That's exactly what it was for me.
All
Um,
right.
and then I still watch the Teen Titans
Okay.
or Titans. They don't call it the Teen Titans, Titans,
Oh yeah, I was
because it's a
watching
little bit
Titans.
more adult.
I didn't catch yesterday's
Yeah.
episode or this week's episode yet.
I fell asleep. I've been tired with school and everything. So really, the main thing is Lasso, Ted Lasso. The Mandalorian just went off,
Okay.
and so I'm gearing up for the summer. But like, I'm waiting for morning show. I think the fourth season to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because I love that. I'm mad C is over because C was great. C was like the Game of Thrones
Okay.
with people in a dystopian America. I mean, people in the dystopian US that were blind, right? It was just like that with Game of Thrones. It sounds weird, but it was very interesting.
Yeah,
So
you
that's
talking
where I'm
about
at
Jason
so far, and I'm
Momoa.
trying to catch up. Yes, and so now I'm trying to catch up with everything else. Like, I haven't watched Wu-Tang yet, and I'm waiting
Okay.
for school to be over. I got to catch up with Dear Mama,
All right.
and try to figure out what my flow is going to be for the summer. But I may be in San Francisco doing an internship, so that'll be great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
So that's me in a long-winded way.
Got you. Yeah, man. I've been like I said, I was watching Titans like you are. I did finish the Wu-Tang saga last couple week or two ago.
So a question,
Uh-huh.
question. How do you feel about the RZA, the actor?
That's a tough one cuz out of unfortunately out of all the characters and the people playing them, I
Hmm.
felt I felt least connected to him emotionally. Okay.
Why?
This the um because he he doesn't look like RZA. I've heard RZA speak on other things. He doesn't sound like RZA. It was like he was trying to sound like the Abbott, the persona of RZA in a kung fu flick, you know, um, and the way he was talking instead of really, unless that's what RZA or wanted him to do. But I've heard RZA
You know,
speak, and he sounds a lot different than that. Um, Actually,
speech pattern a little
Shamik,
faster. Sound like a New York dude.
yeah, Shamik really pulled in um what's his name?
Oh, Raekwon.
Yeah, he pulled in Raekwon. Like
Yeah.
he made me feel like he was Raekwon. That's how. And
Yes.
my boy did Method Man. He made me feel like Meth. Tony Stark.
Dave East. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other people made me feel like they was really portraying their person. And I've heard You God speak a little bit, but the guy who played You God, I felt I had more compassion and emotional connection to him as well. What I'm saying is, for a person we didn't see much of, or kind of didn't, when in actual Wu Tang wise, we weren't as exposed because he never dropped an album by himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I still felt it. You know what I mean? Like, but for
Mhm.
somebody who is portraying somebody who's done so much, like the RZA, I just didn't. I didn't connect with the actor. He doesn't
Yeah. I
play.
think
It depends on the parts he plays, but it's just, and you know,
he just wasn't RZA to me. He was over. It was like an overacted version of RZA, like a cartoon version of RZA.
mm.
That's what I felt like. So. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I
Nah,
had
nah,
the interesting
you good,
take because
because
I
it's
felt
like
the same
the
exact
actors played
way.
who they played. Like when you think of Power, when you think of Divine, they played who they played, and it felt like that, But if you watch the Meister Men documentary and the other Wu Tang, like you see it, because I saw those before I saw the show.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? I saw the documentaries way before I ever watched the show. So that connection was there for the other characters. Like, yo, he really coming off like, I'm feeling that. Like, so I
Hmm.
don't know, because I've heard some
Yeah.
stuff about him. Like people just like, oh, he didn't really bring it.
Yeah.
But that was
Well,
their
he didn't, and
selection.
I think he but and RZA picked him because RZA and Divine are kind of like control freaks,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when you look at 90% of anything that's Wu Tang, it's
Yeah.
RZA, and so you got that from the show, but it's just that you didn't get how RZA was because that dude definitely don't sound like a street cat. You know what I mean? From
Right.
the and it sounds like you said it's overacted. If you listen to RZA, he may have that weird, unique voice, but you still feel the New York in him, and I didn't get that from him. But
Yeah.
we don't. I don't want to lament on me not liking that character. We can move on.
Nah, I get you. So was that, and Disney. of course, I was watching a Bad Batch and a Mandalorian, all that,
Mm-hmm.
and Disney actually surprised me on Wednesday because I was like, "What's on Disney? What's new?" I didn't watch like Peter Pan and Wendy that dropped yesterday, but they have a new thing called Young Jedi Adventures, and the main character is a black kid. It's a cartoon, and it's
Oh,
on there. Like you can watch they're short episodes, so hopefully they make them long. But the main character is a black kid, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta watch this now." You know me, I'm like, I gotta watch this, but it's for kids. So because there's some stuff in the
yeah.
story. There's one of the stories they're trying to save a robot. You don't mind if
Mm-hmm.
I give this away? It's like little short tales, but
Nah.
it's
Let us know. Let us
so he has to use the force to save the robot. He's with Yoda learning how to pick up boulders like Luke, basically, right?
know. Mm-hmm.
And the girl calls him, his friend calls him, "Hey, my robot's floating down the river." They chasing this robot down the river. He picks
Mm-hmm.
up this large wood piece and put it in the middle of the river to get the girl to be able to go across the wood piece to get the robot. But in my mind, me, I'm like, why ain't just levitate the robot on the box and bring him back? Like, you know, that's when you got writing for kids because,
Yeah.
like, dude, it'd be, you'd have wasted nothing. You'd have been like,
But he's a kid. He didn't think fast enough.
yeah. So I had to go. It's a kid because, but even me as a kid, I'd have been like, let me get the box. Maybe that's just me.
Not me.
But
I'd have levitated myself over to the robot. That's how I would have been thinking. Let me
right.
go
So
get the
maybe
robot.
everybody's different. So everybody's experiences create how they respond to a situation. So that's
Yeah.
storytelling. But it's like I always think, don't overthink it. The most simplest way is probably the quickest without, but everybody's scenario is different. Their mindset's
Yeah.
different based on that. So now I can appreciate that. What's up, Tony? Darrell, how you doing? Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at the Black Filmmakers Lounge. Again, my special guest today is DP Jacobi Simmons, and he's hanging out. And we just doing what we do. We talk about cameras.
Yeah.
But another thing I watched, we started watching this show called Drops of God on Apple TV.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it's both in French, Japanese, and English.
I think was looking at that. Continue.
And the girl, so what it is, the premises is there's a girl, her dad is a wine connoisseur. He's a what they call them? There's only so many of them, and especially
Somalia.
sommeliers, yeah. And I think there's only like 6 black sommeliers in the world, like
Mm-hmm.
period. Like that's because Uncork was another movie that exposed us to sommeliers,
Yeah, I saw that one.
right? And this one, the young lady, she grew up with a dad who's the top sommelier. So he's dying. He leaves an inheritance of over $100 million in wine. Like, yo. Now here's the catcher. Initially you think she's allergic to wine. She does not drink alcohol. Right?
She's
She
not in my
can't
family.
she can't drink alcohol because it causes her nose to bleed. It causes her, it's like almost it's almost like she's allergic to it.
Mm-hmm.
He has a young Japanese man he trained, the father. So before he dies, when they go to the will reading, and this is the premises of the story because it's a series and it builds off of this. So, and if you watch the trailer, you'll get this out of it too. So I'm not giving you any spoilers. They have to be able to tell you what's in the wine, the vintage, what vineyard it was made on. And they do this by taste. But again, what can't she do?
Drink alcohol.
Yo, and so you gotta see So now you're getting the story how she has to battle this guy for her dad's inheritance.
Mm.
And she got to overcome it. So
Yeah.
my wife and I started watching it, and yeah, we got. She was like, "Let's keep it going." So well, we'll watch that. Of course, Bel Air, Power Book 2, quite a few things. I actually sat and watched. So I'm a collector.
Mm.
And so they dropped some Indiana Jones action figures and stuff like that.
Oh
So
wow.
I was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark last week too.
The new one or the
The
older
first
new one?
one. I went and watched the very first one.
Oh, okay.
Um when I watch films I haven't seen in a minute, I
Mhm.
tend to, because I know I've seen them, I tend to study them a lot deeper.
Oh, okay.
You
I'm
know,
the opposite. Like I gotta focus to stay focused. Does that make sense?
okay.
Because I know what the outcome is, which spoils some of the drama of it for me.
Yeah, because my
I have
philosophy,
to
all
get
movies
better
are
at that.
train wrecks. We just watch and see how it plays out. But we can figure out which direction most things are going into,
Hmm.
you know. But yeah, so that was pretty much, I watched a few things. I got some stuff on Netflix I've been watching, things like that. But yeah, that was it. If you guys are watching the show, thank you. Good morning. Mustafa, everybody who's joining us, thank you for joining us. Please let us know what you've been watching this week. We can talk about that. Uh, Again, my brother is a special co-host. Tamari TK Henderson is on the grind, and Jacobi is hanging out with us. And we're going to talk cameras because we don't want you to be, if you notice the title of the show today, we don't want you to be camera shy. And we're not talking about being in front of the camera. We're talking about understanding the camera, selecting your camera, and selecting your camera gear and your usage. So, Thaddeus, what's up? Thaddeus is watching Snowfall and a lot of Tubi movies. How are you doing, Thaddeus? I know you've been missing the show. He's like, yo, man. So we are glad that you're joining us.
Tell Thaddeus to check out End of the Line. That's one of my Tubi movies that I shot.
Okay. End of the line, Tubi. See? We also we could talk about Tubi business because Tubi has made some changes. And
Oh,
Tubi, the original creator, Tubi, one of the original founding creators, CEO, Tubi, has left. And many people didn't know that. I think it's 2021 that Fox acquired Tubi.
wow.
And so I try to, if you ever, this is why I always say you got to know the business of this industry. If you ever paid attention to how
Yeah.
Fox operates, when Fox first came on the thing. Thaddy said he will check it out, and he said, "Son of a preacher man is his."
Okay. Wow.
There you go.
So
See,
I think I know where you're going a little bit, Mike, about Fox, man.
where am I going, brother?
The Fox always they choose a market, especially one that is kind of built on the black of the indie or
Mm-hmm.
smaller communities, right?
Right.
And then as they build, then they kind of gentrify it. Is
Start
that what you
pushing
were
them out.
saying?
Yeah. Listen, I'm a very, I look at how people operate. Now, I can't, maybe, you know what? That's speculation. It always
Hmm.
is because it's a new time. It's 2023, and I'm going off of Fox when it developed as a network. Um, but but it's not the mouse Fox. So I got to correct it. So Thaddeus said the mouse knows how to build. So the Tubi isn't the Fox that Disney took over, because remember that Disney only took a portion of Fox.
Yes.
So they didn't take everything. They got certain movies and everything. They certain affiliation with channels, but they did not get everything with Fox. That's why you still have like Fox News and all. That's not owned by Disney.
Yeah.
So
What is his name? Rupert Murdoch? Is that him?
is that
He's
it?
not giving up Fox News. The guy,
Yeah,
the head of Fox News, he ain't giving that up.
yes, and Living Color did help build Fox. Um, yeah, so in Living Color helped build Fox. So usually sometimes when companies sell off parts, what's up, Stanley, my brother? How you doing, man? Thanks for watching. Usually when some companies sell off, they're not selling the whole thing off, they're selling pieces. That's exactly what Warner Brothers did. Warner Brothers had acquired at one point AOL. AOL was Yahoo, all these things. And they started selling off the different components that AOL at once owned, which later was Time Warner.
Mm-hmm.
And because Time Warner had acquired AOL and some other entities that were built into it. So then they started selling those bits and pieces off. That's what Time Warner did. Time Warner also owns HBO, everything. So they, with their movie industry and certain entities, they sold to Discovery. So what you're going to see actually around May 26, you're going to see Max. Max is the combination of HBO Max, Discovery content, which is OWN, HGTV, all these other entities that Discovery has owned for a long time.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see that coming, right? So it's the same thing with Fox. They gave off a certain part of their company they sold to Disney. You sell everything. And sometimes you sell to rebuild, right?
Yep.
Because then you get to play in another lane when you got money to play with. Because the thing people don't understand, well, I'm not saying they don't understand. We don't sometimes think about the business aspect because as independents, it doesn't all, we don't think it does, we don't think it impacts us, but it heavily does.
Yeah.
Because the moves
Because
they make affect us.
people
Go ahead,
don't
Bill.
realize, even when they talk about Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about Viacom, ESPN, CBS, Channel One, the radios, stations under Viacom, and all these other things. So, like, there's so many branches of these companies and the big companies where everything is kind of swallowed or funneled under
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, we were laughing. I was like, Marvel, right? It's so easy for Marvel to disseminate everything because Disney has so many avenues of marketing, advertisement, and media. You'll hear it on all your power stations. You'll hear
Right.
it on all their TV stations and networks, and they'll have advertising everywhere. And most of the money is recycled now since they're the same company. So they're
Mm-hmm.
paying themselves to promote ad space.
Yeah. And because like this, people, so let's, and so you got to, that's why we need to look at Tubi, how they operate, because whenever these new entities come into play, like a Netflix, like a Tubi, when they're all coming around, independent films was the way for Netflix. They got blockbusters. Now they both, Tubi and Netflix, was still getting high end films, but if you don't want to spend a lot of money, where do you go? But because you need more content. I mean, it's just like HBO, Cinemax, Movie Channel, Showtime. When they first came in the market, they weren't running all your blockbuster movies. They were running your B, C, D films to make up the channel. And that's how we got introduced to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so independent film has always been very important. And when we say independent, there's a various structure. There's different types of independent film. There's the, I'm a guy by myself. I'm gonna hang out with my brothers. We gonna put some money together and we gonna produce films. And that's where Rainforest comes along, right? And that becomes a viable entity later. Or Tyler Perry comes along. But then you have the independent where, hey, these are known people, but they're not using the studio money to produce the content. But
And
they
I think,
have the clout.
yeah, and I think that's what people sometimes don't realize. As who was it Meek Mills says, there's
Mhm.
levels to this,
Mhm.
right? And like, you got Leonardo DiCaprio, independent filmmaker. You got me, independent filmmaker. Now, the exposure our films are going to get, the budget our films are going to have, are going to be very different. And
Right.
the access. And that's where when people talk about independent, got to understand too how the Netflix, like you said, Netflix, Tubi now, and they're each for different levels of independent artists. Because some of those Tubi movies, boy, the special effects or or the editing, but they all have better Tyler Perry wigs.
Man, you and Lewis on that Tyler Perry wigs, man. Y'all, bro.
Yeah, because you expect at least listen. I expect the brother to at least present the proper hair to a black woman, right?
Right.
That's all I'm asking. So Tyler Perry kills it every time. Or Boris Kojo with the braids.
No, he had the afro. It was Shamar Moore with the braids and Boris Kojo with the fro.
Yeah, they the same person. I think they the same person. Boris Kojo and Shamik Moore, they the same person. What's his name?
Shamar Moore.
Shamar Moore, yeah. They the same person, man. They ain't no
Oh
different.
man. Yo, so we gotta talk. Now we get into what we do. You and I,
Yeah.
I do a little everything, but I always go back to my peoples who specifically function in those areas. And first, tell people a little bit, because there's some people who are going to be very new to you today. I know you.
Okay. Well, I'm
And it's
Jacobi
been a minute.
Simmons. I'm a filmmaker. And that's it. You know what? I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna tell people to stop saying I'm a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so nebulous and abstract. And as a content creator, um, I like that term, but it's overused, right? So we got to find another term. Because like I am a DP, but I also create my own content. And what I mean is like I shoot mini documentaries, I shoot short films, um, I produce my own documentaries for sports. I work part time for HBCU Game Day, so I shoot black college sports a lot now, like more than I ever. And I never expected to get into that. I started as the editor and camera guy for my homies when we made our first short film. I wasn't even the camera guy. I just had the equipment. I had just bought a Mac and had Final Cut Pro. I got on the brown market. Final Cut Pro 1.
Right.
And then I said, well, how can I edit if I don't have footage? And went and got a camera from one of those brown market sites where you got it on the deal, but you wasn't sure if it was legit and you were crossing your fingers that your camera would show up.
Right.
And I had, oh man, I'm trying to even remember. I didn't have a Panasonic. I think I got a JVC. And that's when JVC ENGs were out with the Panasonic AVC 200.
Okay.
Remember the first 24p handheld camcorder?
You know what's funny? You and I were in a different lane though, because my first handheld for that was the Canon GL1, GL2,
Oh
and
wow!
the XL2 and XL1s.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I'm talking about for film, the style of filmistic with the 24 frames
Yeah.
per second, right? 24 progressive frames. And but my first camera was a JVC because my brother Greg brought it for me when I was going to Bowie. When everybody realized I was going to study communications and film and radio and stuff, he's like, I'm gonna get you, here you go. Here's a present for you. He brought me a video camera. And I didn't put that joker down for a long time.
Yeah, it was a workhorse, and I forgot what made me. Oh, hold up, I missed something. I'll tell you, this is funny. I'm gonna tell you the real way I started with film. Two things happened. The first thing, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma. Excuse the red hoodie. And we were doing a step show, and we were the unknown step team. I mean, we were traveling all over, and we were doing the Philly Greek in 2000, and we wanted to do an intro. So we went to the Belmont Plateau, and I had to shoot and edit the intro on. I had to shoot on a Handycam, a Sony Handycam, and edit an iMovie, our intro. That was my first foray into being a filmmaker. and I shot it, edited, and produced it. I didn't write the script, and then I met Mike Pender and Azim Siddiqui, and they took me and we shot um, Negro Zone with Atif Lanier and Harmageddon Entertainment, and that's how I truly got started. My first real movie shoot, where
Mhm.
they got a picture of it. I got a blue bubble coat on. It was in the middle of North Philadelphia in the winter. We had a real bad snowstorm, and we were all standing out freezing. Um, and we had a white guy playing a character. We threw him out in his boxers out the car in the snow in the middle of North Philly. Was it 23rd and Susquehanna? I could
Okay.
remember, which is the middle of North Philly. And you see all these black guys chasing this white guy in his underwear in Philly in the middle of the winter, right? It's hilarious. And then that's when I started to acquire. All I had was my first. I didn't even have a camera, and that's we would edit, and that's when I had. By that time, that movie I had got into and start editing with Final Cut One, and then I've been shooting. I shot several
Mm.
shorts, two features.
Mhm.
Um, we won several awards. We actually have a film traveling now, and they're actually getting ready to put a second film on Tubi. I had a small break. I was an intern at NFL Films, camera intern, so I did actually get to shoot and load a cellulose reel camera. I don't know what
Mm.
brand it was,
Right.
um, but I had to learn. I was a loader, so I had to learn how to load blind because
Yeah,
most
because you can't expose the.
the film, and we were
Yeah.
outside on football fields. So I spent sometimes 8 hours a day. I can't do it now. I probably would tear it up, but I would spend 8 hours a day with ends of film roll loading a film, just practicing, making sure that I can load it and get it tight and get it right. Because there's so many things and pieces you got to feel your hands to understand what it is.
Mm.
Um, and so now I had a little layoff, but for the past 3 years, I've shot. Uh, um, it's funny to call it a short, and it's 56 minutes. But we shot a short that's on Tubi. Um, Shot a few other passion projects with some friends, but mostly I've been creating mini documentaries for HBCU Game Day covering Black college sports, which is very, very interesting, man. And through all of my endeavors, you get to understand that every camera isn't equal, but and that's sometimes the wrong term because
I would
they're
say
made to do
perfect.
a job, and equipment isn't equal.
Yeah, I would say
So
it isn't perfect. I would align it to a car. You know how you buy, like you go to a car dealership and they have this one model, and that's the low model, right?
yeah,
And it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it has
mm-hmm,
a usability to do what you need it to do for that time. You know,
mm-hmm,
when you're young, but you get this, right? And then when you get a little money in your pocket, for some reason you go for the luxury brand,
yeah,
right? You go for the high end, and you realize there's things in the high end you don't even use. So then
yeah.
you come down to the middle where it's like it's just right because it's the things, it has everything I'm going to pretty much use with some
Mm-hmm.
things, you know. And that's, I think that's where it becomes, because I've seen people who are really new to this, and the first thing they go is, I'm gonna go buy a red camera. Like, well, have you used the camera? No. Said, so you know red is a different monster. I've used red cameras. Like, that's a different monster.
Yeah.
Well, nah. And the guy was telling me, because I was talking to this young guy, he was in Best Buy. He's like, he's gonna buy a red so he can um shoot YouTube videos. So I was like, why do you need a
Stupid.
red? Because Marquise Brownlee was using a red. I said, but did you know the first camera Marquise had was not a red camera? I have the first camera he had when he first started making his videos
Yeah.
outside of
And
his.
Marquise is making $1 million to turn out other product, and he's probably not even shooting anymore. He's just the
Yeah,
face of it. But that's another story.
it's his brand. Yeah, he's built his brand from when he was a middle schooler all the
Yeah.
way. that through college. He was doing this all through college. And that's what I said, him having that Red, you don't know. Red could even gift it. He might not even bought it. Red could have gave it to him.
Yeah.
Because that's how big he is. He's sat down with CEOs of Apple and Microsoft and Google and these different companies, and he'll show you the studio and stuff. But it's like that's what they see. Oh, he's using this high-end camera. Yeah, you build to get there. It's like you and I, we can go back. Oh, this is the first camera I had. The first camera I had outside that was digital DV was a Best Buy open box that I got for $200.
I had I had a 4K one. But I'm gonna tell you what's so funny when you like picking equipment, just like you said about Brown. I had a 4K and I shot a whole video, and he was like, "Yo, it looks too clean." It's like, what? Like, no, it was HD. It was H. It wasn't 4K. It was HD, and he was like, "It looks too clean." Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Like, but because the eye,
It's too
who's
sharp.
my clientele? What are they used to? What do they understand, and how much are they going to pay? And a Red may not even fit your budget because the people you're making money for or for yourself.
Not worth using.
Yeah. Plus, now the I look at it a little different, right? Because you have an SUV, right? But you have a Jeep and an SUV. Same kind of car, but one has different tools you may not notice unless you need them.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? And so, like right now, we're talking like I have a Red Komodo and a C70. Both of them turn out wonderful images. But my C70 is faster and has more things for on the go.
Right. Works right out the
But
box.
yeah, but my Red Komodo's image and a few other tools it has makes life a lot easier, but it's slower. And when I mean slower, just operation takes more time and more thought into it before you go do other stuff, right?
You have to
But
understand it.
yeah, and so like I want a Jeep, but do I need four-wheel drive? Right? Am I going into sand and all this other stuff? Right? Or can I get an SUV to carry my equipment instead of the Jeep and still get things what I need to do done and all the other stuff, right? The Jeep is going to be more expensive. The tires, all the other stuff I need to get fixed to be four-wheel drive is going to be way different. But that SUV can probably do the job and do a little bit of four-wheel drive, right? Which one do I buy? I have to figure, am I going into the jungle, right?
Right. You're going into the forest. You're
Yeah.
hunting
Or am I
bears.
just going to be riding on the street? And I think sometimes people don't really understand the equipment because they haven't used it. Like I didn't understand. Um, because like as you get into bigger systems, better systems, um, different systems, like what tools are you going to need to get that done? Like some people, like I shoot sports and I'm shooting with a Red, the Komodo. I like my C70, but some people are using the FX3 or FX30 and their work is phenomenal,
Right.
right? So you really got to sit down and really try to understand. And sometimes it's trial and error. Like I went and I started shooting sports with a DSLR, but I would have to do all these other things. I still got to do a little bit of them to the Komodo, but I had to do all these other things to shoot outside to make it comfortable for me and look good.
Yeah.
I grew up old style, so like young kids shoot with their arms like this, holding the camera, or like
Right.
this, and they got it. Nah, Jack, I'd rather have it on my shoulder. I like to
Distributing
be
the weight.
here
Yeah.
or here, and it's different, So
Because they're used
that's
to
how
their
I look at it.
phones and stuff. Right. They're used to using cell phones. And so they buy the small rig gear that lets them grip it and they put it out. but they don't really realize how much weight they're putting on their arms holding it, where your shoulder can hold more weight and you're just balancing it, and you put weights on the back to balance it out. And
Yeah.
you're looking this way, and it just, it's very different. But when you're more in a professional setting
Mm-hmm.
and you're around professionals, and even as an independent, it's better to get on sets of independents who know what they're doing, or have a deeper understanding, or have the level of education. Because when you come out, I get it. A lot of people, and then, like I said, there's nothing ever wrong with YouTube University, because we're streaming on YouTube right now. But it can't be the only thing.
Yes.
It's like school isn't the only thing when you're in film. You got to be on set. You got to know, be around the people. And then you get around the same, if you're a DP, you get around with other DPs, because
And that's
DP is a creativity. It's a technical career or technical aspect, but it's also a creative thing.
And you know what's funny is I'm in a Facebook group, and that's where I've learned most of the stuff really on the thought process of organizing the red. Because when I first got it, like, it's funny, you learn to shoot with a DSLR and it has a exposure meter, and I've read the exposure meter all the time. I was able to figure it out. Then I bought a FS5,
Mm-hmm.
right, a used one for $2,000. That tell you how beat up it was and everything. It didn't have an exposure meter. So I had to learn false color and all this other stuff. But I'm looking at the exposure and trying to do it by eye, and colors are off. All these other things are happening. I hated it. I lost $1,000 because I traded it in, and that's all they were taking it for. And so, yeah, like, the more you get around people who love what you're doing. Now, here's the other problem with that too. It's a blessing and a curse. You got 10 DPs, you'll get 20 ways to do
Right.
it, right? And so, figuring out what's the right thought process behind your decision is more important. Then you can come up with what way works for you.
Yeah.
But like, picking camera equipment, and today, right? Every camera is good. Like, every single camera is good. You can't name one camera that doesn't put out. I don't care if you get a R8, R5, A6700, A7, anything, they're all going to put out a quality image.
And it,
Now, you got to figure out what are the limitations of the tool that you have
I was about to
and
say,
what
it,
are the
it comes to
advantages.
that. I think it comes to that because so what you just mentioned, where the R5, the R6, those are DSL cameras, right?
Yeah.
The thing they lack is a fan. Cinema
Mm-hmm.
cameras have fans, right?
Yep.
But that's if you're filming. Because when I think of a photography camera, I get it, vlogging, YouTube channel creators, content creators for the social media, for the web. And DSLRs got big because of shows like House, when they started filming with them.
Yeah.
Because they're small and they can be put in small areas and they can still give you the high quality at the time. But they had limitations for filming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what, makes the difference, right?
Yeah.
But then, because like when I wanted to get into HD, I never bought an HD camera. Because remember, I had the Canon XL2 and I was in SD for a minute. And my first HD camera was this joker right here, the Canon 7D.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my first actual photography camera, because I had, the little cameras that take pictures digitally and all that. But this was the first camera that did everything. And it had its limitations, to where I turned around and said, you know what? I'm going to grab that. Later on, the C100 came out, because the other ones
Mm-hmm.
were really overpriced. Like, I wasn't spending 10 grand, 15 grand, but $5,000, 7,000, close, five. That wasn't bad, because I spent that much when I bought the XL2,
Mm-hmm.
right, back in the day. And so, but again, its functionality worked for me when I did a few short films and projects with it, but still not knowing the camera. Like, I think when I get a camera, I learn how to use it, like on a short. It's a short film. That's when I get to test equipment. It's when I get to play with stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the best thing to do. I don't want to wait till I'm working on a feature film to be like, I need to know how to use this camera. Like, yo,
Yeah.
by then, that's money.
And that's kind of, I had to work when I got my C70
Mm-hmm.
going from a DSLR. It wasn't that big because I still had some of the similar tools. But like I got into an argument with a friend because I had to learn what shutter angle meant. And I operate in shutter angle. I don't operate in shutter speed anymore or degrees,
Okay.
right? Because once you set it in shutter angle, it doesn't matter what my frame rate is. It's going to automatically make the proper adjustment. If I put it on degrees, now I got to do the math every time I shift.
Right.
But that's a whole nother story. But we got to,
No, but that's
because
a good thing to say because some people don't know because like Canon's new update actually switches your shutter to match the refresh rate of LC and projectors,
oh, yes, to get
right?
rid of the and you can do it in smaller increments. My fault.
It's me
I
and you, man.
remember
What happens is when we get talking because we
that. Yeah.
we speak the same language. Um, But for our listeners, what's up, Kai? How you doing? Kai Jackson has joined us. My boy Leonard has joined us. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. You got to know why you're getting it. You know, Kai is talking about. He said, "Great discussion." Um, he said, "I'm using the Limix G5 Mark II for most of his content, and most of his content will be for the web." And
That's a
and
nice
that's the
feature.
thing, huh?
That's what's interesting is the GH5
Mm-hmm.
is like was the premier filmmaker's camera at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember all the two, like everything you had to do with Magic Lantern to get all the stuff you
Oh
need,
yeah.
right? And then people took that and put it in the camera so you no longer had to worry about bricking your camera or doing all that stuff.
Voiding the warranty.
Yes. And that thing was I think there was some people still shooting a couple years ago with the original GH5 because it just looked so good. I had a G7, but Micro Four Thirds was
Different
interesting
type
to
of
me because
lens.
you had to get a whole new lens set. You had
Mm-hmm.
to understand, and it was hard to get wide sometimes. But anyway, but you got to figure out what works for you because that was tiny. And for me, shooting with such a small camera created problems which seemed weird because I was used to having heavier cameras. They were more steady. So for me, that little teeny camera was uncomfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. Like that's why, and for me, that's why I went to cinema cameras. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not if I'm gonna take photos, I got a photo camera. That's what it's for. But
Yeah.
I wanted cinema cameras. So that's why I went to that Canon C100 Mark II. That's why I have the C70. You know, it was between the C70 and the C200,
Mm-hmm.
for me, right? I wasn't at the point I really wanted the C300 or the 500. I mean, the cost was there too. So when I looked at a camera, I was looking at what could I run into the ground producing films.
Yeah.
We're in the digital age. We call it films. It's really not films, but we call it films because of the type of energy. Because when we really referred to film, we were talking about film cameras. We're not using those really anymore
Yeah.
as much. There are still people shooting on film. That's why Kodak still exists and those other companies, Fiji and Kodak. So, but for us, or Fuji, I'm sorry, I said Fiji. I was thinking of water. Um, but you select your cameras based on your needs. And when as an independent filmmaker, my needs are I'd rather find a camera that, hey, if I had $15,000, I would buy 3 C70s, right? Or maybe
I,
buy 2 C70s and one R5C, which is an 8K camera, but the limitation with the R5C is it only shoots in C-Log 3, where C70 is, and that's again, it's 8K, but when you're looking at editing and dynamic range, that's a whole different ballgame. And now you're speaking a different language.
And see, hold up, you brought up a good thing because sometimes, like, I had to learn this, right? The better codecs are larger, a little bit larger than, like, because like people don't understand the difference when they say codec, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that there's wrappers for the data,
Right.
right? And so which one can hold the most information? So the better codecs or ones that hold the most information are normally larger. That means I have to have a better computer to edit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is the cost and storage space.
Right.
You have to think of when you purchase your camera, that's the second level of thinking that people have to have. Because if I got me the bottom basement, um I'll say Windows PC, right? And I go get me some red footage,
Right.
right? Or even if I shoot Canon RAW or Sony RAW, right? ProRes RAW or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I screw myself because it's gonna take me a month to edit 10 seconds because my computer's gonna run so slow or burn out or overheat or do all these other things trying to get it done, right? And
Right.
then, am I rigging it? Do I want to rig it or do I need to rig it, right? Because one of the things with my C70 is rigging it is uncomfortable because of its weird shape.
Mm.
But my Komodo is quote unquote film camera, right? For professional sets in a
Very
way
boxed. Yeah.
where they have stuff to rig on it already and it's made to be rigged up. So you have um the form factor fits. And so there's a lot of little things that you have to think of that people miss out. So like the thing with like the Komodo, you can it's like a DSLR with some of the inputs, and people are making professional audio that goes into an 1/8 inch jack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the problem is interference, and people don't know that. Like the biggest difference between XLR audio and 1/4 inch pin audio isn't necessarily the pieces, but it's interference and
Balanced
I
and
forget.
being balanced and
Yep,
unbalanced.
and having those cables and shielded cables. They normally don't make as good of shielded cables for 1/8 inch. Now some
Right.
people are making better stuff because of DSLRs, right? And so like there's a whole bunch of what do I want to sacrifice? What do I want? What material am I going to have to get to make my camera do what I need it to do? Like it's a whole list of things that you think about when you get a camera. Like the thing that I loved about my C70 was it had mini XLRs and
Mm-hmm.
it had a ND filter, right?
That's the
So I'm
biggest thing.
shooting,
Yeah.
right? But now I'm shooting on a Komodo, which doesn't have an ND filter and has an 1/8 inch audio port.
And
But
so
when you
then
kind of, huh?
I was about to say in your situation, then you'd probably either two things you would do is depending on the lenses you start using, because I think it's a RF lens mount, right?
Yep.
And so if you want
But,
to go EF, you can do the filter with the ND built in that you
mhm.
make the adjustments to. That way you're not changing the filter on the top of the lens. Cause that also becomes
Well,
they
now,
got new ones that are magnetized now. If you go
yeah,
in and set
well,
them
I
up.
have this, right?
Okay.
And it is, if you can see it, it's a variable ND.
Yeah.
See how dark it got?
Mm-hmm. So that's
So
built
now
into your
change the filtration there. But like those are all the kind of things you got to think about and come up with a solution. Like, and it costs money. Instead of it coming for the package and the uh Canon, I had to spend another $300 to get a piece to do that, right?
so right.
So that's the give and take. But like the that Komodo is a tank, bro. It's not heavy or anything, but it's
Mm-hmm.
a tank. Like they'll give you the DSLRs, even the C70 might have a titanium body wrapped in plastic or all these other things they call it,
Right.
but it's no way near as built as sturdy um and compact as the Komodo. There's
And the
no way you're gonna
Komodo's a
tell
red
me.
camera. But
Yeah,
again, and this is what you kind of just tapped on while we were talking, while you're sharing the ND filter on the flag and stuff was um, on your mat box. So it was basically cost
yeah,
because you bought like let's just your Komodo costs as much as the C70,
mm-hmm.
right? Body. We're not talking about lens. We're not talking
Nope.
about battery. We're not talking about cards, everything. We're not talking about a screen to look at. This is just the body, right?
Yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with that. But that, as a filmmaker, you're budgeting, and then again, you got to build this out. So this comes with research. What do I need with this to get it to here?
yep. And then if you look like, not to cut you off, but
No,
that's a
you good.
great place to start. You talked about the R5C, right?
Mm-hmm.
They use CFast Express cards.
Yeah.
Cost more than SD,
Mm-hmm.
which the C70 uses. I use the Komodo, which is used as a CFast, which costs more than the SD card. But it's almost metal. That SD card will break. Like so, like there's a give and take. You could talk about cost, reliability, all these other things that go into it, and you got to figure out. The thing I tell people is get what you can afford. Right,
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing. You budget for what you can afford. Then you break down in that category what's going to fit what you do. And
Yeah.
that's sometimes difficult. It was difficult for me in the start because I need this, I want this, I want that, I want this. Ooh, they got a new this. I'm trading my camera in to get that.
I
And
think
then
we
I
all do
start,
that. Yeah. We all
right?
do it
And
at
then
some
you want
point.
all three. Like I do want a Sony FX6,
Oh, word.
but then
That's
because it's full frame, but then I said, let me see, because I might buy the adapter,
mm-hmm.
but I gotta get the jobs to pay for that.
Yeah. See,
And that's what
and
I've learned to do.
when I bought my C70, I bought the adapter, and now it's full frame because I use EF lenses
Hmm.
instead of RF lenses, so I don't have that issue. But I also gave myself more stops and more f stops simply
Yeah.
by doing that. And but you got to understand how that works because now I can emit more light and I have a full frame image. So the quality of what I shoot is going to be much better
I'm gonna
to an
say,
extent for what I want. I mean,
yeah,
but
I'm gonna say different.
right, no, I'm just saying it's going to be
I'm
much
just
better
messing
than
with.
if I left the camera the way it was. Like
Yes.
adding that into it, I can now be in full frame. But the other question is, but could I have just stuck in RF anyway, and would it have mattered? See, that's the other
Not, but see,
question you got to
that's,
ask
but,
yourself.
but as we're saying, it's not up. And that's the point we're bringing up is what do you prefer, right? Some people prefer full frame,
Right,
right? And that started from DSLRs because most cinema cameras were Super 35,
right, which is
right?
what my Canon C100 was.
Yeah. And then when they start shooting with the, what was it? The, what camera? 5D Mark II.
Mm-hmm. You
They
got full
start shooting
frame.
with the 5D Mark II, and they seen how the depth of field, the bokeh, people start wanting full frame. And compared to everything I had, like I've been shooting, I started with a T2i, which was APS-C sensor. I've only shot full frame for a minimal amount of time with the A7 III. After the A7 III, I got the FS5, then I got the
Mm-hmm.
C70, and now I'm with the Komodo. Um, I loved Sony until I got the FS5, and that turned me off, and I haven't been back since.
Yeah, everything, and then the other thing about cameras, it's an acquired taste, right?
Yes.
There's because they all have their sciences are different, their logs are different, when I say science, like color science, I know that I like Canons because of skin tones, but they are a little heavy on magenta, right? We know
Yeah.
that, right? So you have to, when you're editing or you making adjustments, you make the adjustments to fit that. When I bought the XL2, I was crushing blacks to get that cinematic look. You know, and so but that's the thing, you learn your camera. I think that's the other thing. People buy a camera and they go, I can turn it on and it works, and I make a few settings because this guy on YouTube told me. And it doesn't necessarily work that way.
At all.
Right. And since, so hold up. So we got a question. We gotta open that up. Job said, Leonard, he said, since you all have trial and error experience, what cameras would you say not to start with? Can't tell you that. And the reason can't tell you that is because they're baseline cheap it's all about budget, right? When I talk to people, like, okay, I'll give you a prime example without a camera. Computers. I will never buy the low-end computer because I know what I do and I know my needs. And most people, when they're starting, they don't know what they need. And we had a whole series. You don't know until you know.
You don't know
And we were talking about that. Like, well, we didn't know until boom, it hit us. But it's like you go out and you look. Okay, so when some of us got in this game, I was building computers. I built this computer. It met the standards for Adobe Premiere and Avid. It was perfect. And when I talk about Adobe Premiere, when I was using it, it had a little horse. So let me tell you, that's how far back. All right. So I used to do spoken word, and I used to film people's spoken word things and put stuff together and edit. And I remember editing this girl's thing. It was over 2 hours long. I edited it. I let it render. I started rendering on Sunday. It crashed on Monday. I rebooted it. I started to edit again. I couldn't use the computer the whole time. That's why I'm glad I had a laptop. But by the time it was done rendering, it was Friday. Now, this had all the specs. It was built right, And back then, Adobe was a processor hog. Huh?
Well, did it have the minimum specs?
No, it had the max. I go top tier. And I was like, what's wrong with this? One of my boys in the church, he turned me on to Sony Vegas. I got trained with Vegas. I learned it. I even got certified as a trainer. Vegas, I could edit one thing, let it render, start opening Vegas up again and edit something else while the other thing is rendering. It was a GPU that was processing, not the CPU. Because again, back then, Adobe was using your processor. That was using my GPU, my graphics, to do that.
Yeah. And that's also what Final Cut did when they did Final Cut 10, but they made it too much like iMovie for me.
See, I'm Final Cut certified now. Like, I didn't want to do Final Cut. Like, when I saw people use Final, like, wait, you got to open this to do this, to do this. I'm like, yeah, how many folders you just open just to chroma keying? And they're like, yeah. I said, that's a waste of time. Well, what do you do? In Vegas, I see I see my key here, I drop it on my footage, and I make the adjustments, and I'm done. You open folders. I don't want to do that. I don't have time to figure what folder to open. And but you can click these buttons and it'll open these. I don't want to go through all that. It drag and drop. And then Final Cut, the new one, did that. Just, hey, find it, drop it on the thing, make the adjustments.
Yeah, that's the change.
And that's what I tell people. Huh?
Let me go back to his question too.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I'm gonna give you a few scenarios. If I was starting out and I didn't have a massive storage, so if I had I'm different. Like Mike said, he would buy 3 C70s. If I had 15 grand, I'm waiting to see, but I would probably get the Komodo X and a new computer.
He gonna spend the 10 grand. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but if you don't have the hard drive space and a
Mhm.
good computer, I wouldn't buy a Komodo. I wouldn't, because even on the lowest setting for the ELQ setting, it's massive compared to what the C70 files you can get with good quality. Even
Mhm.
like there's a set, I forget which one. I got to remember.
What, the
But
C70?
yeah, that I
The
shoot
LT
on
raw
most
and
people.
the
Huh?
light, they're both light raw settings. You're talking about
No,
those?
I shoot
Okay.
on. When I shot sports, it's a the rapper. I forget which one it is. It's not the MP4, but it's MOV. I gotta look and see. But it made smaller settings. It made smaller files.
Oh,
Um
ACH, AV.
yeah,
I should have brought my camera up.
H.265. It's the one that
Yeah.
makes the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
H.265.
Mm-hmm.
They were smaller files, and on an M1 Mac, and see that's the difference too. If you got an M1, it deals with the files way different than if you have an older Mac.
Right. It was actually
And
quicker.
so yeah, and so you got to look at all of those things. Like Sony is, you can get the Canons, the R series, R5, R6, R5C, or the Sony A7 IV, A7 V. All of their like any of those cameras are amazing. You don't need to get a cinema camera, um,
That's why
unless
I say
you,
it's budget, because let's think about
yeah,
right now, right? If you're trying to shoot video and pictures like photography,
yeah, a
I'm a
hybrid shooter.
Canon guy. See, I'm a Canon guy.
Mhm.
My wife has a Sony camera. Everybody has different stuff. But for me, I would go for the R7,
Mhm.
right? I know I know I can put a adapter on it just like I did with my C70, so I can get full frame out of it with the
Uh-huh.
adapter. It's RF, so I can use EF lenses if I want. I can take the adapter off and just use RF lenses. Now the thing is, RF lenses aren't cheap. Good quality RF lenses are not
Mm-mm.
cheap. You're already hitting 1,000 to 2 grand. Just to let you know. But there are secondary companies. If you're only focusing on film, and this is the other thing we're not talking about, we're talking about
Photo
photography
lens.
lenses.
Yeah.
But we can talk about cinema lenses that are worked instead of f-stops, you're working at t-stops, and you're getting a whole different depth of field. You're getting a whole different quality. And the
Yeah.
lenses are the same. Everything's built the same in those. So if you're doing a follow focus and the you know what I mean? Well, I gotta
Yeah, matte box. If you're changing the matte box and filters,
yeah,
you're
and
gonna have
everything. You don't have to worry about that because your lenses, even if it's a telephoto lens, which is zoom lens, it's gonna be built to that. All of that happens inside of the lens instead of the lens doing it.
yeah. Because photo lenses, it happens on you extend now. Even the new RF lenses extend the glass now. Even the DL
Mhm.
lenses. I have a 70 to 200 f4 and it extends. And when it did it, I didn't know, and I started freaking out. I thought I broke my lens at first.
And the thing is, now with lenses and even photography or cinema lenses, if you get cheap glass, you're gonna see something what we call focus breathing.
Oh,
Right. And if you don't understand that your lens is doing, it's when it shifts, it kind of looks like it's when it's focusing, it looks like it's moving as
yeah,
you're
it'll go
focusing.
a little further and come back.
Yeah. And so it depends. Now you got to research those lenses and stuff. But I mean, if
Or
you're,
parafocal lenses.
yeah. So I always say, what should they not start with? Well, okay, here's what I tell people what not to start with. Um, don't go buy a red unless you're hanging around a bunch of people using red cameras, because those are different monsters. They're not like there's a color science, there's a good quality, there's the size. Look, when I first started shooting on somebody's on a red for on set, um, We shot for 15 minutes, the hard drive was done. You had to switch it out. Like the battery died in 20 minutes. Now time
That's
has
where the
changed.
Komodo. That's where that new what they call it, DSMC3, the Komodo, the Raptor, and all them.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that changed the game. The
Yeah.
OS is simpler and easier if you have a basic understanding, but how you get proper exposure is different. Like they have a stoplight system, which is crazy, but you have to understand their stoplight system, which isn't hard. It's just different if you're used to shooting. And so I would say I would agree with you, but if you're willing to put in the work, because if you've never shot with a DSLR, you'll be learning the same kind of stuff if you picked up a Komodo nowadays.
Okay, I can kind of give you that, but what I mean is let's just and that's the thing too. It's like who's the user? Like if am I
Yeah,
getting it for my kid? Am I getting it
yeah.
for a teenager? Am I getting it? I remember one of my former students hit me up. He bought the Komodo.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, wait, it doesn't really have autofocus. Was it? It might have been a Komodo.
Yeah, its autofocus isn't as that
Yeah,
good.
or something. Like because he said no. It might not been. It might have been a Raptor because it's heavier, right? And he was
Mm-hmm.
trying to put it on to fly it.
Oh, on the
And
drone.
yeah, he was trying to have it on a drone or something. He was trying to do. He's like, it's just much heavier. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't that. He went and bought the Black Magic Ursa.
Oh,
That's what it was. Never mind. So the Ursa was cheaper. It didn't
yeah,
have ND filters because it doesn't. You see fast cars, the old one. They got a new one, which is the 12
yeah,
gigabyte one, and they were heavy. The Ursas were very heavy, and so he couldn't put it on a gimbal and stuff. It just wouldn't. It was very hard to do that with. They're tripod cameras.
yeah,
You know those Ursas at the time. They've got Ursa Minis now, and they're a little lighter. They took some stuff out of them, but that was he sold his DSLR, his Canon, so he could do that. His Canon was just fine on a jib and just fine on a gimbal,
yeah. That Ursa
right?
was $3,000, so he thought it was sweet.
Yeah. And he didn't know. And I tell people before you buy a camera, if you have a little extra money,
Yeah,
rent one for a week. You can rent them for a week for like $300-400, or even some of them for like $200.
not a
And
red.
no,
That's
not
two
a red.
fifty a day.
Yeah. But then if you're buying a red, you're spending money, and that's a long-term investment. And then
Yeah.
that's the other thing with cameras is an ecosystem built into them. That's why those
So
lenses are so important, because if you're buying lenses, some people they buy the camera but they rent lenses.
yeah, but here's the thing, right? And this is funny, and people don't get this. You know, a mirror, which is the Bentley or Rolls Royce of cameras, uses the same exact sensor they've been using for close to 20 years,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm learning something.
Think about that sensor. So, only thing they adjust are camera functions and features within the camera, but the image is still the same. And most of them still only shoot a 1080 or 4K image. None of them shoot 8K or any of that I can think of. Like if you look at the um a mirror, which one is it?
But what are we projecting in 8K? That's the other thing we have to understand. When we throwing out numbers like 6K, 8K, 12K, we're not
Mm-hmm.
even in that world yet for projecting. And so and streaming is another monster, because
Yeah,
4K streaming is limited. Most of
very.
your stuff you're watching is what we call ultra HD, because most of your
Mm-hmm.
TVs are ultra HD to begin with. They're not even full 4K. If the numbers aren't 4,000 when it starts,
Mm-hmm.
it ain't real 4K. When you see that 3,000 in front, go.
Yep.
That's just ultra HD. It's not even. And so and that's what you got to remember,
Mm-hmm.
and keep in the back of your mind, because you're not really watching 4K content when you're looking at YouTube on your television,
Yeah,
or
and that's the
Apple.
marketing and branding of cameras, right? And
Hmm.
so like I shoot in 4K and always export for YouTube in 1080p. All my stuff that I shoot that I do for YouTube. The other thing is the reason I shoot in the upper resolutions is reframing purposes.
Right.
That's it. Nothing else. It doesn't afford me anything better than 1080 except for a sharper frame or sharper image when I downsize it because I don't have to upres or upsize anything.
Right. No, I get that. Like that's the thing you got to think about. Um, because what I did liked about that C100 Mark II was it brought in your footage using a 4K sensor, but it gave
Hmm.
you HD, and I could still do color correction and you know tighten it up, throw some LUTs on there. And people used to be like, "What camera are you shooting with?" And I was like, "I'm shooting with a
Hmm.
C100 Mark II," and they're like, "Nah," and I'm like, "Yeah." Like that's an HD camera. I know.
Yeah.
But you know what?
And
It don't take me long to go film. But it had
and
the
when you
logs on there.
yeah, and when you understand your cameras or you get into it as you go to buy a camera, you understand like the C70 is the C300 sensor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting a $10,000 camera sensor that's still a quality sensor, right? And people don't understand that about the image. The sensor is the key. What brings in the image?
Yeah, how many
All the other
pixels,
stuff,
light. Mm-hmm.
yeah, all the other stuff is choices. You know what do I need? What I don't need? Like I don't necessarily need the XLRs, but if I needed them, I could add a piece. So, but I needed the ND filter, and what was that with the camera? How important? All those other things. But the one thing you don't scrimp on is the sensor, brother.
Right.
And that's what people sometimes got to learn. Because like the A7 III, the Sony FX3, FX30, and FX6 all have the same sensor. All of them, right? So, but they hamstring some of the cameras with other little features to make each one a little better. You know.
But I want to go real quick back to Leonard's question, right? What should you
Oh,
not
okay.
start with? Um, so the question really is not what you start with or what you shouldn't buy. It's what do you need to do? What are you trying to do with this camera?
Yeah.
What do you want it to do? What quality of footage are you looking for? Right? How much time are you going to spend editing? Because when you're shooting in logs, that's a different type of editing than if I was just shooting in MP4.
Hmm.
I'm not doing a bunch of um, color correction and stuff. It's already built in, right? I'm not
Yeah.
throwing a bunch of LUTs on it. Sometimes you wouldn't throw a LUT on it because it'll mess up the footage,
Yeah. Rec
right?
709, the way
Yeah.
to go.
So, are you shooting straight out? And so, how much time are you spending editing? How many bells and whistles? What editing software are you using? Right? If
Yeah.
you're using iMovie, if you're using a low end editing software, then there's basics. You're not going to focus on a bunch of other stuff because you're not. There's no plugins and things like you're using unless you're using Final Cut, Adobe, DaVinci, and
Yeah.
so that's the thing. Like, so choosing a camera means what do I need to do with it? That's the first place I need to go.
Yeah.
And
And
then
who
how
am I
much,
giving it to?
yeah, and how much money am I willing to invest? Because it is an investment. Like I just picked up, as y'all saw earlier, I still have my Canon 7D. This thing is probably worth $100 right now when I bought it for $1,300,
Hmm.
right? And I still have it. This is back in 2000, was it 2009, 2008?
Yeah.
HD. And so I could give it to a kid or somebody or sell it for $200 and be like, hey, with some lenses and boom, there you go. You know, so understanding, yeah, and Thaddeus said workflow and use are so important. Like that's the first thing we kind of don't consider, um, and we need to,
Yeah.
right?
And that's all comes with experience. That's gets back to you. Don't know what you need until you know what you need.
Yeah, you don't know what you know until you don't know what you don't know until you know. Until somebody says, "Hey, would you?" Well, because I had to tell people in the group, buy hard drives. Huh?
Oh,
Buy hard drive. 2 investments I will say before buying a camera. I
and
will
then
say
it's
this:
but hold up.
computer
Let me
first,
yeah. Go
high-end
ahead.
computer first. Hard drives,
Now,
external
but
hard drives, portable.
you got to be clear because this is the part. Only reason I jump in because I wasted money.
Mm-hmm.
All hard drives aren't the same either,
Right.
right? I have a storage hard drives which are cheaper but large, and then I have my editing hard drive which is super fast
But
but small.
expensive and small. Yeah,
Because
I use my editing hard drives as SSD drives. My
yeah,
storage hard drives are the regular hard drives. Like I can get a 12 terabyte for $200,
yes,
right?
and that's the conversation you got to have because if you try to edit on one of those 7,200 RPM drives, man, you can cancel Christmas.
When you're
Yep, and
done
high
editing
end
your
batteries, you're
project,
right, high end RAM.
yeah, when you're done editing your project, stored on the um, RP drives, when you're ingesting your footage, transfer it onto the small SSD drives, and actually they're more portable and they're more robust. Like if you drop an SSD drive, it probably least likely is not going to mess up. You drop them RP drives. I had
Yeah,
to pay $1,200 to get a drive back.
yeah,
The
because
drive
it's
wasn't
been
even worth $1,200.
yeah. I was about to go get nerdy into what makes them different, but just remember SSD and NVMe.
Right.
Those are the fastest ones to
Which
get the
is
NVMe.
that's SanDisk is doing the NVMe, and they just released like different things to plug it in, and a lot of people have been using those drives now with the Black Magic because they have the USB-C 3
Yeah,
connection, which I wish every other like I wish we could get away from cards because literally if you plug a hard drive to your camera, you're good. I wish we can get away from cards. We don't need them.
I like for me. See that's where you talk about best use case. When I'm on the field, I don't want something that'll come loose from my camera.
Oh, okay.
I'm afraid of right. Because I'm running, I'm moving. I might get bumped. I've actually been hit with footballs and stuff. So
But your
if we
use
hit
is
the
different.
drive,
So for you, yes. For me, on a film set,
yeah,
I'm not getting bumped. You know what I mean? Like it's rare,
yeah.
but I
No,
get you.
you're right. I'm saying for me, for you that made sense. And I was thinking about it. I was like, but shit, I would freak out. I was like, is it connected? I try to tape it down. You know, it's cool if my I would probably have to get like a 2-pin limo to connect to it. I don't know because like I'm looking at my camera now, like where would I put it? Like that's the conversation you start having. Where am I?
Right?
Because
Oh,
when you know cable management is a beast. So, but anyway,
so I know
that would sound good.
we got to
And
start wrapping
and
up, but I do want to share something, and then I'll
go
let
ahead.
you. You know, I just wanted to let you know the cops are outside my house,
No,
and something
he
has
got
happened,
his life.
and you know, yeah. No,
No,
the cops are not outside my house. Something is not happening, but this is where lighting comes into play. And
yeah.
this is a tool I purchased. It has a battery, standard battery, Sony. You can buy these cheap everywhere. This is a newer light. It is the newer BH20 RGB, 2.4 gigahertz. It comes in a
Oh,
two
nice.
pack. So there's 2 of these. They got stands and everything. And
Oh, dope.
the reason I bought this,
Mm-hmm.
and I bought it because one, it was on sale at the time. 2, I'm working on a film. I got not shooting it, but I'm planning stages of a film. And in the film, you're supposed to see police lights flashing through the house from outside. When they look out the
Mm.
window, you see it. Boom.
Yeah.
I don't have
Hold
to
up.
get cops to come, the illusion is there. I can dress some dudes up against cops if I wanted to. They can come to the door, and the lights can be flashing through the window. No
Yeah,
one.
those are useful for all kind of stuff, man. You can
Oh
put them
yeah,
anywhere.
yeah. They're small. Now the only other lights I like are the real flat, thin lights.
Yeah,
Because you can put them in your car. You can do but camera equipment, lights is one of the biggest, most important camera equipment pieces you can ever get outside of gaffer's tape.
Right.
Gaffer's tape you can't beat.
You're right. Hold on, I got. Hold, if you can get a wide shot, can I get a wide shot?
I'm gonna go straight to you. Let's see what we do. Here we go. I'm gonna change over to Jacobi. Bam.
Boom. You see my little
It's set up. His
Yeah,
setup
you
is
see
different than my setup. But yeah, and they're very useful. There's some you can put in the ceilings. They're lightweight too. And they do have, those have plugs, but I like the fact they have batteries. And the batteries usually last longer because, they're not emitting that much power. And I can probably get a good, I haven't tested it, but I probably get a good 3-4 hours out of it or more.
Yep.
I
So,
always carry multiple battery packs.
Yep. So Thaddeus said two things I want to comment on.
Okay.
I wanted to ask him, does his Adamus record in R3D? That's the first thing. Number two, Aperture has these lights now that are flat, but they also can connect. So now you can shoot through them in any shape you want.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm thinking about switching to get the Aperture because you also can tie them all together to build something.
These lights have magnets.
Yeah. Who is it?
These
Is
lights.
is that the MC?
This is the Aperture. This is the Amethyl A1.
Okay. Yeah, I got to go look because I want those MC11s, and they have light bulbs. Aperture has light bulbs.
Yeah, I saw that you could put into your practical lights, your lamps and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, to control them. So that is a good thing. But I'm waiting for Thaddeus to let me know about recording that R3D because that's the only reason I don't record directly into anything.
Now, I used to use the Atomos. The thing with Atomos was file. Mm-hmm. Right? And at one point, Atomos gave you ProRes and DNC. DNC is Avid base. Yeah. Right? ProRes is Final Cut base, and most of the others use the ProRes because they're usually MOV files anyway. He said, no, it's not R3. R3.
Oh, then I don't want it. That's the whole benefit of having the red. I can shoot in ProRes.
The red has its own thing. Leonard said, I love you. Here we go. I love you showing the setups and equipment. Thank you for that. Nah, you're welcome. We just, hey.
This is what we do normally. Like we'll sit on the phone and talk for hours about stuff, and we'll argue about our needs and everything. And like it's funny because like we do this stuff all the time, and it's just what we do.
Yeah,
and every time we get something new, we call each other and talk for hours.
We sent a text message like, I sent you those lenses, the cinema lenses. And I was like, what'd you think about these? And like that's what you do because like if you know me, Jacobi said this earlier. Filmmaker. When I say filmmaker, usually I'm thinking of a filmmaker as somebody who does it all, who's capable and knowledgeable at all. Like you're a producer. You know how to be a director. You know how to be the DP. You know how to do sound. You know, like you've done those things. And it's not necessarily you did them because you want to. You did them because you had to. Because when you're an independent, you don't always have the money, so you got to learn the stuff. And there's other independents like us, we're equipment guys. Like, I never want someone to tell me no. Yeah. So we're like, I bought this camera. Like, when we were both talking about the C70, we were like, so what do you think? And he was like, oh, man, I might get the Komodo, man. But you just bought the C70. Hey, you know. He said, well, I'm probably going to sell it. I was like, nah, don't sell it. You might use it for something. Because here's the thing. When I was talking to Jacobi, I said, yo, I got some movie projects. And you got a C70. I got a C70.
Yeah.
It cuts down shooting time. That's why I would do multiple cameras, because it's going to cut down my shooting time. Again, I'm looking at
Which
producing a low
lowers my
budget
cost.
film. Huh? It lowers
Which
your
lowers
cost?
my cost. No, if we cut down shooting time, it kind of lowers the cost.
Yeah. It lowers the cost. It saves us time. We get in, we get out, and you can go work on his next project and make more money because he's not sitting there. But like when you're shooting with one camera, that's where your time is. But there's nothing wrong with that too, because if you have time, that also means you have the time to put in for quality.
Yeah.
And you got to have budget, because again, there's that nice, lovely triangle. You either got time, money, or quality.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's either cheap, high
Good
quality, or
or
good.
fast. Cheap, good, or fast. You only can get two.
Yeah. And so, you're never going to get all three. But
Yeah.
I know we can save time with multiple cameras. That's my mind thinks. But also, I'm looking at shooting a low budget project. So when I'm saying, hey, brother, come in, good, fast, or cheap. So, and that's what I think when I think of stuff, and that's why I say you got to be careful of what you're saying you're not going to spend, right? Because if you heard last week's show, we talked about it. There was this thing that someone once said, our people, we don't usually have the money when it comes up front, but it's on the tail end when we need the money to fix the problem that we created by not having the money. We all of a sudden we can find the money and it costs more. And it never makes sense. How is it you can find the money on the tail end when you could have just found the money in the beginning and got it right, and you're not fixing those problems?
Well, you know what? I always hate when people say our people, but I like to say inexperienced people, because it happens
Okay.
all over. We just have more experience with our people, right? And
Right.
inexperienced people, like the film I shot, End of the Line, right?
Mm-hmm.
The producer was inexperienced, right? And he had the thing I do appreciate. He had a vision, but he was inexperienced on how it all worked. So sometimes things took longer and cost him more money because him articulating his vision, he didn't know what he really wanted until he saw what he didn't want. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is it's like investing. If you said to me, Jacobi, I say, yo, I need a DP.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, this is how much I cost. And I go in my head, man, that's too much. That's too much. But I know what you're doing. You get
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
But remember this. Hold up. I'll give you an example of me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, man, fix it. Laying the floor in my bathroom. I could do that because I didn't respect the craft
Okay.
until I laid the floor.
Right.
Now I'm not laying no more floors. I'm paying somebody what I can afford to get it done. And that's because of my lack of experience. So when a lot of us in the beginning, because all of us in the beginning, when we start to respect the craft, like people will do this. They'll want to pay actors, or they want to cut costs on the sound guy, which is
Mm-hmm.
one of the dumbest things ever.
Right.
But people, until they realize how important it is, then they start to respect the craft. And
Okay.
when until you're in the middle of it, you don't know to respect the craft because people make things look so easy until you try to do it. Right? When you watch
Mm-hmm.
them Home Depot videos, it look easy how he laid that floor. Right? But he ain't telling you he prepped it, he did other stuff beforehand. He got other knowledge of how to do this.
Well, and that's
And
where
so
I think for us, it's always about get the knowledge. Like, watch the Black Filmmakers Lounge. Reach out to the people that come on. Ask
mhm,
them questions. Respect their time. As consultants, a lot of us are family. We're connected. So when we
yeah.
talk to each other, it don't bother us because we know each other. But when you don't know somebody, you have to cultivate the relationship and the respect for them in their time.
But that's that generational wealth we were talking about. Those generational experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because I give you me, I, like now we're all cool and we share we exchange evenly,
Right.
right? But when I was new and I'm calling people to find out the business, I'm not realizing that I'm asking somebody what he paid maybe $30,000 to go to school for. I'm asking him to give it to me for free and his time and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, I'm not saying I got to make somebody pay for my time, but I didn't also, I mean, pay for that knowledge the same way. But I didn't realize all those things to show them the proper respect for the information and appreciation what they were giving me.
But did you at least do things like, yo, let me treat you to lunch or a cup of coffee or let
Nah,
me?
not in the beginning. Not in the
Oh, okay.
beginning. But I didn't know until somebody really sat down. Like I sat down and somebody was like, "Yo, man, you realize like even when you ask for somebody's time, if you got 3 questions you want to ask, stick to those 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you long winded and you do a whole bunch of stuff, they'll never answer the phone again.
Mm.
You know, and so that's when I started to think about all that. And I didn't know. And that's the part where, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying everybody's the same way. I just didn't know.
No, I
And
feel
a
you.
lot of times, huh?
I feel you. I mean, it was different because like my school program when I was at Bowie, right?
Hmm.
Our professor was like, call different film companies and ask them certain questions, but respect their time. Like, you got 5 minutes. You know, what can you do in 5 minutes? Um,
Yeah.
Daddy said that's a great mentor. You know, yeah. And I reached out to my like when I reached out to for mentors, the first thing I said, hey, can I take you to lunch? Can I send you Cash App? Can I send you a Starbucks card or something? You know, it's like your time is valuable. And I respect that, you know, because I know my time for whatever
Yeah.
I do. And I don't mind, you know, helping people because that's just the type of person I am. But you know, me, I can do it and not think about it. But I
But
do
see,
know.
I was an education major, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had those conversations because educators give freely. Like educators
Yeah,
are taught, and we give freely. Like anytime you will sit down and talk to you and give you anything, if we have the
that's true.
time, and we
That's
don't
true.
expect anything. So now when you're transitioning to a whole nother, it's a different thought process, it's a different attitude, and it's a different thing. So when I started to grow in the field, and that's why I guess I'm advocating for some grace, because that's one thing. Now I'm gonna say our people is we don't give each other grace, right?
Okay.
We can sit back and say our people always do this, but those same people that say our people never do have never sat with a group of Asians or really know a bunch of Asians
Mm-hmm.
or been around a whole bunch of white people really operating in the field or been in all these spaces to limit that we're the only ones that do these things.
Well, no, I'm not saying in
Not
my
you in general.
experience,
I'm just
yeah.
saying that
Yeah, no,
phrase.
I get it. But like in my experience, I've been in rooms, the people who don't know are willing to pay, right? They're willing to
Yeah.
respect and pay. And when it's unfortunately for me, when I try to even help us,
Mm-hmm.
it gets burned, but I try to educate us too. Like, I'm not gonna let you burn me, but I want to educate you because I don't want you to do it again because I want you to benefit.
And I'm gonna say this to that because I know I've been there. I get you, but there's also, as we say, levels to this. And
Mm.
when we talk about those levels, the problem is with us. There's not somebody that walks you through those levels. So there's unsaid what was it, what I can't even think of the word. There's unsaid things in each level
Mm-hmm.
that you do that are norms, and nobody's there to whisper in your ear what's appropriate or inappropriate. And when you're a hustler, or when you're really trying to, or you're ignorant to it, you hustle to get that and work hard and ask, and you're hungry, but you don't understand the norms and how those things operate, and you offend or can. And here's the slippery slope. There's some people who don't care or are going to try to take advantage and do those things.
Right.
And so like there's this large thing, but I say that's everywhere, any group, anything, and how that goes. It's just that when we're sitting in a situation, and that's why Thaddeus is right. Mentors are
Yeah, because
extremely
I
important.
mentor young people. You mentor young people. I mentor young people. We are those types of people that we help the youth, even in what our other job is. We're both
Yeah,
educators. Daddy's is educator. So those that free is norm to us because we do have to make those adjustments as we became aware. Like
yeah,
everything can't be free for everybody. But we want what we look for is the empowerment, especially with our people.
yeah.
Like
And that's
that's
the
a big
struggle
thing, right?
because they don't understand. And I got to meet up. You got to connect me with Thaddeus. But I'm gonna give you a brief personal experience, and this is probably why I'm sensitive a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Cheney. I was athlete of the year. Athlete of the year. We had our banquet where we got our awards and everything. Most banquets are what's the dress code to that banquet?
Suit or
Black tie,
black
right?
tie.
Or
Mm-hmm.
dark suit. Man, I
Yeah.
had on some olive green, khaki, some brown shoes, and a silk floral pattern shirt in the '90s, like I was Kid and Play.
Right.
Nobody said anything. I thought I looked good when I walked in.
Where was your coach though?
That, that he didn't explain. I bet you he assumed I knew.
And you know what's crazy? Because I'll give you Leonard said preach. He's like, amen. Because I'll give you an example. Like, me, I taught high school. And when my
Hmm.
kids got scholarships, one of them said, Mr. Melvin, I don't have a suit. So what I did,
Hmm.
you know me, got him a suit. But when I took my students places outside of school, I exposed them to things and I had those conversations. And that's the thing. Like you and we, some of us are probably on the same thing of, I ask a lot of black men, why aren't they teachers? And they're like, there's no money in it. I said, but it's not about money, it's about legacy. You
Well,
know,
that's also a cultural thing. What is our legacy?
right.
Right? You know, a lot of people have to sit and think, and then some people, because where we've been, and like I agree with you, but I understand, like, we're in a capitalist society where the
Mm-hmm.
dollar is king. And when you don't have any, and we're talking about all these generational wealth and all these other things, we're forgetting how to get from A to Z, right? The reason, and then with the political onslaught on education and teachers,
Mm.
right? Teachers aren't necessarily and then when you have everybody stir the narrative that teachers always are mean to kids and tell them what they can't be, right?
That's not
We
true.
know that's not true, but if you look, even Biggie talked about it, right?
Because
How
that was
bad it
his
is.
experience with a particular teacher. Yeah, because I could tell.
Yeah,
I told teachers. I can remember all the teachers that told me I wouldn't amount to nothing. But I also remember the same teachers, the names of the teachers who said I could do whatever I want in my life.
yeah. But they're not going to remember that teacher the same way, or they're not going to tell the story about that teacher because it doesn't make them look good. Right? And
Mm,
so that crafts the narrative. You know, that made if Biggie tells you about all the teachers that told him how good he was and how talented and how intelligent he was, when he's telling it, it reinforces something in him. But if he tells you about all the teachers that told him he wasn't crap, it fits a narrative, right? About education, about going why school is not important or so it's a lot of other things to it. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We're gonna get back to
right.
equipment.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
like, but that's important because as we come up and we talk about this equipment, being able to share the knowledge, being able to give it and feel comfortable, but also understanding that we've earned and we've worked, and it's not like people need to pay us for what we have up here, our intellectual property, right?
Hmm.
And to build on that, and to be in a space where I can sit and talk to you, Mike, who also understands part of who I am and what I went through, and we can share cultural experiences is important, and
Hmm.
even to sit and talk to other black men and share that knowledge and push it. And it's not like it's funny because people politically spin our place of safety, the Black Filmmakers Lounge, almost as anti, but it's important that I'm able to sit and talk to somebody I can relate to who grew up with similar things like me in the society that we're in and be able to share and feel comfortable, you know. And it's
Hmm.
dope for me. And it's not mean I'm anti because I pass it on. I got students that I
Yeah.
love to this day. But people will change that idea of what it is, and what makes it work. So Mike, you got to keep doing what you're doing. Keep talking the stuff you talking because you're dropping jewels, bro.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, hey, you are too, man. Bruh. That's why I love having my family, my boys on here. The men I look to and respect, because Thaddeus mentioned mentors, but what we don't realize, and I say you have your threes, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
mentor is somebody who's where you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
but then you have your accountability partners. They're kind of where you at. It's a lateral move, but you're still iron sharpens iron because you're learning from your mentor and you're bringing me knowledge. I'm learning from mine. I'm bringing you knowledge. And then we're connecting with other people. And then we're going back and mentoring younger guys to bring them to the level they want to be. And we're not, and we have to not be the you're locked in to be like me mentality. Is a true mentor wants you to expand.
Mm-hmm.
They got to know that, okay, it's like this. When you first meet me, I live with my parents, right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
go, I want to move out. I'm saying I'm moving to an apartment. Well, the mentor I get, he moved out. He went to an apartment. But then he may be comfortable at that spot, or that's where he's at. But then I want to get a house. So he has to push me to somebody who has a house. You see what I'm saying? And that because I can get to that level. And it doesn't mean I don't negate the guy who got me there, or the lady or whoever in my community who pushed me. It means that I respect both of you because we are community.
Yeah.
And the guy I walk with, which is you, Lewis, Jamal, Leonard, Thaddeus, Kai, all well, Kai's at another level. But we talk to each other, we get input, and we get growth because we're getting information from different places and we're bringing it to the circle, and the circle grows. Our growth happens.
Yeah.
And we're not, and the thing is, I always say, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I know I'm intelligent, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room because the true intelligence knows I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we talk and we can humbly and respect. Like, we have different perspectives on stuff and we can talk about it. And that's where film comes. That's where production, that's where business comes. Because you see it one way, I might see it another way. And we go, oh, I ain't even think about it like that, bro. And then you're like, yeah, me too. And now we're sharing, we're like, well, how can we fix this? How can we change this? And even when it comes to equipment, because the one thing we kind of agree on is first think about your money. Because we are always considerate because we are at various levels when it comes to money.
Mm-hmm.
So buying a camera outright, I won't go cheap for a reason. It's an investment. So, and my philosophy is your first investment outside of God is you. And so never give yourself less, but also never not do your best. Right. And so when I buy a camera, I'm getting the one that I feel will fit me at the time. And it's the best for me.
And you will get there. Like that's sometimes people I would and like I know I talk a lot sometimes, but
Nah, you good, bro.
I was
Both do.
the kid who made all the mistakes. Would buy a lens, trade it in, lose money, then end up buying it again because it really was doing what I needed it to do, but I thought something else would be better.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've owned the Sigma 18 to 35 twice. And I'm so mad because I don't own it now. Right? But that's
Okay.
no matter what level, people love that lens. But I always thought I wanted better, never satisfied. And that's sometimes what you become when you don't understand how these things work or whatever. So,
That's a jewel
he's
right
right.
there, man.
Be patient, get what you can afford, the best you can afford, and slowly build and get money to get to the next one.
Daddy said he loves that lens.
See?
Yeah, everybody loves that Sigma, man. That's why I was like, yeah.
But I was when I first started, I was immature thought. Thought I could get this, it'd be better. Thought this was better. Now I'm gonna go buy it. It's cheaper now. It's like $500, but I'm gonna go get it
And
because it's
you know
great.
what? I think, yeah, but here's my problem. I got a bunch of stuff, right? And sometimes now I do sell stuff, but like I still have my Canon C100 Mark II, right? I'm not gonna shoot. I got my C70. I'm probably not gonna pick up the C100 again. So I'm trying to decide to sell it.
Yeah,
Now,
sell
when
it
I
to me.
sell
I
it,
can use it at school.
huh? Sell it to you.
Sell it to me. I can use it at school.
And see, that's what, for me, I even thought about doing a youth program. And I said, well, if I do a youth program, I could use that camera. But if it's just, it's odd. It's hard because sometimes we hold on to stuff thinking we'll use it, and then it's still just sitting there.
Yeah. You know what I say, honestly?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I lose money with trade-ins a lot of times or selling it. But I say, if I'm not using it for a certain amount of time, then it got to go. Because it's worth more being traded in than sitting on my dresser or on my desk.
And it's not taking up
And
space.
that's my perspective. Because some people say, "Oh, you might get to it," and then I say, "Oh, I might not," and then so like you gotta pick and choose and understand and build it. Like I got a dresser over here with stuff I gotta throw away, cables, everything. I still got my first iPod, the black one.
That's worth something though. Is that you talking about the first iPod?
Yeah,
like the block
with music on it.
You know that's worth a lot of money now, right?
Nah, seriously.
The joke's a classic. Yeah, my dad still has his. I bought for him and stuff. I sold mine to Best Buy. My mistake.
I'm gonna go find out. Now you're gonna
I
have me
never
look online.
That is said, me and my partners sell to each other and donate to other programs.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you just never know what you need until you get to a point. But getting around more filmmakers, getting around more people who are doing what it is you're doing. Like today, if you got camera questions, this is the perfect time to even ask them about your purchases. It comes with what are your needs. So the first thing is buying a camera, figure out what you're going to do with it. So I'll put it like this. Let's pretend you're going to make a YouTube channel. You don't probably need to buy a Red right now.
Nope.
Right? But you could get, like we said earlier, you could probably get, you can get a Sony EV1 or the EV10. You'll have to buy lenses. Lenses won't be cheap, but you're looking at $1,600.
So
including a lens.
And I know I just said it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody's first lens, if they're on an APS-C camera, I would say get the Sigma 18-35 as your first lens. I don't care what anybody says. It's cheap, it's beautiful, and it does the job on those APS-C cameras, and that's your standard 24-70 on a full frame. So that was just my one thing I wanted to throw out there. And Sigma should pay me money.
Yeah, no, that's good because again, like when I bought my first that Canon 7D, my photographer friend said, "Hey, the first lens you need to buy is a 50 millimeter." He said either get the 1.2 or 1.4 or 1.8. He said don't go any higher. Yeah. He said you're gonna get that real nice depth of field, and it's good for shooting portraits and people and filming. He said then you probably look at a 35, but then you'll go to a 24, and then he said then go up. You got your 85, your 100. And he said that's if you're looking at prime. Now zooms, he said be careful. He said because with zooms, depending on the f-stop, it has a range, and what they don't tell you is when you zoom, the f-stop changes.
Yeah, variable f-stops. Yeah.
So
the thing about the Sigma 18-35 is like having three primes. Mm-hmm. It's the 18-1.8, 24-1.8, 35-1.8. And
it's not a variable zoom. Yeah, it's not a variable f-stop.
It's a constant aperture. It's every distance is 1.8, and it is sharp and beautiful.
See, and there you go. And so those are when you're looking at your investments, right? And so what I will say is, if you're trying to get into film or video production, any of those types of things, because I look at film and video production as two different entities.
Mm-hmm.
But I like interchangeable lenses. I have a mistake camera. My mistake camera is a Canon XC10. It is the camera you are currently looking at me on, though, because it is my webcam. It is a $2,500 webcam. But and you know, but hey, it does. Now, if I wanted a B cam or to get like footage for like behind the scenes on a production, I don't think it's a bad camera at all, and it shoots in 4K. But I also know I can't change the lenses out, and it also has that variable f-stop.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing. So that's what you want to look at. You can get a used camera, probably get cheaper, and usually with used cameras, for the price of the new camera, somebody will sell you the used camera and give you batteries, lenses, things you wouldn't normally get with it, because they're trying to get rid of it. Yeah. And so that's what you want to think about.
Used cameras are great. Used equipment is great. I used to buy used lens. Actually, I still do. I'm about to buy like you can get those Zeiss Milvis lenses cheap, and they're beautiful. Like that's what I'm looking. It's KEH.com, MBP.com. Like you can get a Zeiss 50 millimeter Zeiss Milvis for like $600, but it's no autofocus. So know what you're getting before you get it.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. When we are talking about lenses, you got to think about, all right, so when we're talking about cinema lenses never have autofocus. All right, it's all manual. Everything in a cinema lens is manual. That means you may have to buy the gears, everything to pull focus, to do follow focus and adjust your aperture and your stops. So some lenses have 3 rings, some lenses have 2 rings. Do they make lenses with 1 ring? I mean, usually that's the zoom, but
nah.
Yeah.
Primes. Only primes.
Only primes have 1 ring. But your zooms don't. So you need to understand that. The reason it's a prime is it's only at that focal length. Yeah. So if it's a 50, it's a 50. It's not going to adjust. You're just changing your distance of your camera and your focus, your shutter speed, or your how much light you're emitting with your f-stops or your t-stops. So, and that's what those are the things you got to understand. And this is why you say when you're picking equipment, it's like, what is your focus? Now, like I said, if you're trying to make a YouTube channel or you're doing some social media, the cheaper cameras that run you somewhere, I would say run you between $500 to $800 can do a good job for you. As you build your channel better, you might look at getting much better cameras, or you look at expanding. Because the other thing is, expansion happens in this way. We doing this production right now, but I'm in a state of my production where I could have at least 3 cameras running at the same time and switch between them. So you might want to look at what is your end goal too. Like I would tell you, if you wanted an internet TV station, I would tell you to go buy the Blackmagic studio cameras. Because you can get, now the difference is you're going to buy other stuff to go with them to make them work on an automatic level. Yeah. But you can have a nice 4K television station for the digital world.
Yep.
And then you're going to probably spend a roughly another $3,000 on some teleprompters, right? Microphones, depending, you could start off if you're doing the Rode Wireless Go's, if you're doing the Rode Wireless film mics. Those are different types of mics. One uses batteries, the other one charges inside of the actual mic. Sennheiser, DJI has the same stuff. So you're looking at mics. So like That's the thing. Like, here's the thing. I'm gonna buy a camera. Don't just focus on a camera. I will tell you, when buying a camera, there's 3 things you need to look at. Well, 4. Computer should be the first thing you get. Buy your computer first before you do any of that. You got a good computer, then you can base your equipment off your computer. Camera, microphone, lights, and your lens. 4. Camera, lens, mic, lights. You can get a decent light kit. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and you got to think, like we were talking about the camera stuff. Mike's studio, he's like, I don't have to move. Everything is here. Or I'm gonna be on set where things are going to be in a controlled environment. Like I got to shoot interviews, so like I take those 2 lights off. There's a little thing. They become a key light. They're portable. They're easy to carry. So like, also, what are you doing and what do you need to do? Because that will determine also your lights, what type of microphone you need to buy, and all those other things too.
Yeah.
Because that's a big deal for me. Being mobile, or the ability to be mobile, is crazy.
Yeah, and see, that's because for me, I have a nothing here moves in my studio area. Microphone, I have 2 Roadcasters. I have a Rodecaster 2 and a Rodecaster 1. People are like, sell the Rodecaster 1, you get your money. Nope. The Rodecaster 1 is my portable audio.
Yeah.
Right? I just shift one down. I upgrade it and shift the other one down to being portable. Goes in the bag. It can go with a laptop. I have cameras I can hook up to it. And I have a portable switcher. I have a Roland switcher. Now, I probably should have went to a Blackmagic switcher, which he has. But see, and then the thing is, because again, what if you're developing a YouTube channel or a social media channel that you're interviewing people on locations? Now you have a kit that you can travel with equipment.
Yeah.
And here's some cameras you might have already at your disposal. I'll give you this. iPhone. You can use your iPhone as a camera. You don't have to record to it. You can set it up. There's apps you can download. They'll get rid of the record button and all. It just uses your cameras. And you can switch between your iPhone and another camera. Let's say you might have an iPhone and an iPad. Some of you are in those ecosystems. Now you got those 2 cameras. And then let's say you do buy an actual video camera or a DSLR or something that you can plug up. Because the other thing you got to worry about is battery power or plugging in.
Yeah.
How long will the battery last? Right.
And extension cords.
Yeah. So that's a social media studio production kit for traveling. And that can run you, depending on what you already have or don't have, $25,000 to $35,000 to $5,000 altogether, or even more. And like we said, computer wise, even your computer alone can run you a good $5,000 if it's on the high end, right? We're Mac users. So
I'm the cheap Mac user. He's not so cheap.
But we're Mac. But we get discounts. We get educational discounts. That's why we teachers. So that's the other thing. And so let's say you're making a movie. Now I would really tell you, hey, really invest in a really good Mac. Now you have to decide, are you going to do an iMac, Mac Mini, a MacBook Pro? MacBook Pro is going to be the
or
most
Mac
expensive.
Studio. Don't forget the Studio.
Well, the Mac Mini is the Mac Studio to me, the box.
But they're different. That's technical differences.
Yeah.
But you got to say it, because people will go, because they think they'll get it because they look similar.
Right. No, the Mac Studio's thicker.
Yeah, but I said similar, not the same.
All right.
So you just got to know, because one is made to be a production piece. The Mac Mini isn't, and so that it has more RAM and those other things. So,
all right, Thaddeus got a question, and you're the Mac Studio. He's the Mac Studio guy. Looking at Mac Studio as an upgrade. Thoughts?
Yes. Any other questions? Because I'm upgrading to the Mac Studio. Also, it is built to be a horse. They do have the Mac Mini Pro M2. But once you do all the upgrades, then it's the same price as the Mac Mini. Um, I mean, same price as the Mac Studio, and the Mac Studio may have more ports, Thunderbolt ports, and all the other stuff. That's the reason. Like, I have a MacBook Pro right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like. It just doesn't have enough ports, and keep moving it isn't good for me because I know anytime you got to keep unplugging and plugging into a port, you could damage it.
All right. He has a backup question to that is, can I use the current iMac as the monitor?
I don't think so because I've been trying to use my iMac at work as a monitor to my laptop because my iMac at work isn't as powerful. Um, so I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I haven't figured it out.
There you go. Yeah, I haven't connected to my. The only thing I've added to my iMac at any point was my iPad.
Yes, and using Sidecar,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's the only thing that I know about too. But I'm gonna tell you one other thing: a Stream Deck. But I'm gonna get a loud peak instead of a Stream Deck.
Mm-hmm.
I, that is gonna revolutionize how I edit because you can put your major hotkeys on the Stream Deck and edit from that. So like I can put my ins outs, um, make edit. I can tie some knobs, and it's like 15 keys you get the program. And I very rarely use more than 15 keys on the keyboard. Um, so I think that's going to be revolutionary to me editing a lot faster.
On that. Okay. Are you? What are you editing? What are you using to edit your footage on now? We haven't
Premiere
talked.
Pro,
Okay, so
Premiere,
he's the Premiere guy.
yeah.
Now I was
And
curious about DaVinci if you're using DaVinci yet.
I haven't got into it because anytime you switch an editing system or I'm going to switch, I need time to figure out how it works first because all of them have nuances on how they work. And
Mhm.
I have too many projects that are speed related, and I can't I can't have time. I need time in the summer to fool around to figure it out to be more comfortable so I can be fast.
Yeah, and the other problem is like I don't know if you're like me. With Final Cut, I've bought plugins.
Oh, okay.
I've
Well,
invested in
yeah,
some
but
plugins.
I have some. I actually have the Red Giant because it's free for educators,
Okay.
but I don't use them that much. Like I have one animal horse, or animate horse, something like that, something horse, and I use that for sometimes quick transitions and stuff. But as I'm getting better, like making some of my own transitions, and I really don't use like I work kind of fast now, but I really don't use plugins that often, that much.
Mm. Okay.
My work doesn't require it a lot of times, and I have presets. Like even for coloring, like adding a LUT, I have a preset. So I just drop my preset on a layer, for adjustment layer. I just drop a preset on the adjustment layer, and then I'm at a baseline, and then I can color any clip individually like I want to.
Okay. So you're building your LUTs and you already have that. You're doing that in without. So you're not
Now Red
ordering
has
it. You're
its
just
own
like,
set
hey.
of LUTs. Yeah, Red is the only camera company that I know of, and that gives out a LUT to get you to a foundation, and it also has some looks and stuff like that. And so I use their LUT as my foundation to get the colors where they should be, and then I make adjustments there, and then I have to decide whether I'm going to make it a local adjustment, meaning actually in the file because all of Red files, their information is data, or I'm going to use Lumetri to make that
Derek.
to
Derek said Ari does it too.
I can't afford Ari, Derek, so I have very limited knowledge in
What's up, man?
making that happen, brother.
There's another one. Derek be
Yeah,
talking cameras too.
I'm waiting to get a used one in a few years.
Yeah. Um,
That Alexa Mini is what, 40 grand?
is that what it is? No, there's a cheaper Alexa though. I think there is
That's it.
another cheap R.
That's it. The
No.
Mini.
I think there's one. I'm gonna look. I think there is one that is like 10 or something like that. You're saying, yeah,
You
there that
know,
is the cheapest, the 40 grand one.
yeah, I'm not get you. You find me a 10 grand Alexa, I'm on it. I'm on it. But then you got to
So
switch your mount because I think all the Alexas are PL mount.
yes, the RPO mount. There's a
Derek
on
said, "Hell no."
there. um, yeah, 39,000. He ain't just getting an Alexa. I thought there was a cheaper Alexa coming,
If
or
that would
will
set
be.
the whole game on and put
That
everybody on notice if Alexa made a $10,000 camera.
yeah,
That's
that
like
would.
that's like if Bentley says I'm going to make a $30,000 car.
But you remember, Red was like 20, 30,000 when it came
Yeah.
out.
But
It
remember,
looked.
but Red did it slick because remember everybody thought they were going to buy the was it $3,500 Scarlet,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that was just the brain. And so when you end up putting the monitor and the batteries and everything else,
See, he
oh, you can
said you
buy
can
the
buy.
old America for cheap. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna look for an old mirror.
See, but I thought Ari was coming out. Alexa was coming out with something much cheaper at
Yeah,
some point, like a mini or
old
whatever.
mirror might be great to work with, but I would have to get all the pieces. The
That becomes
because
the problem. Yeah,
yeah,
and
you need
then
an
and that's
EVF.
yeah. And see, we didn't even tap on that, like the things you have to do to their various cameras. Get an
Yeah,
EVF so you can look through it. Get a monitor, a larger
yeah,
monitor, because a lot of them have that 3.5. Some may have a 5.
yeah,
Then you might want external monitors that you can run up to. So now you got to get a wireless system that you can transmit wirelessly to, because you
for
don't want all the
camera
cables running on
control.
the floor. Yeah. You're looking at gimbals and jibs, and there's a, and then you got to make sure, the mistake I've seen filmmakers make, buying a cheap tripod.
Oh yes, yes. What do you say? They did come up. Oh, it's
He
70
said
grand.
70K. Derek. This is the Black Filmmakers Lounge. Most people are not. That's people's car, if that's their car.
No, that's two
but
or three of my cars.
but yeah, so like that's the thing about buying a camera, and that's why I say, like, for the new person trying to get a camera, um, I would honestly, and this is just me, tell you your first camera might want to be something that works right out the box, that you don't have
Well,
to buy a bunch of things too.
well, what I've learned and what we talked about is most filmmakers, even if they're doing, let's say most content creators that are not just doing talking heads on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to learn, like, some people are stuck with autofocus
Yeah.
because it makes life easier. But as a creator, autofocus is bad because it doesn't always control where you want the focus to go, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
would say start off learning manual focus, period. That's how so like you can do that with any camera, but I think if you start off with something and you understand the right skills to learn, no matter what camera you have, then you're fine. And I agree with you right out the box, but I think they need to have a thought process for learning, because when people hear right out the box, they pick it up and they start shooting without thinking and just shoot.
Understanding the adjustments you'll need to make. But then see, that's the question of what do you need to learn? So if we're talking film, now let's get to the real. We're talking filmmaking, not videos for YouTube, we're talking about narrative and documentaries. Because now we have to talk about lighting, right? Because we're trying to sculpture a 3D image out of a 2D image and create a mood and tone in that setting.
Well, I do run and gun filmmaking, right? So I don't have an opportunity. I got to take available light.
Right.
Right. So, it's all of that. But like you said, understanding what you're doing, picking and choosing. And that's the part where you don't know what you don't know until you know it. Like, you don't know if you just want to shoot. Like, I wanted to be a filmmaker first, but I ended up shooting more documentaries because I love telling stories, and I love telling stories that are already there in a sense, right? So you won't know until, here's the thing, just get a damn camera and shoot.
Well, then that means they should just use their phone.
Yep, that works too. Because then you start to, I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about, right? No matter how we put it, and now that I'm thinking about it, you find out as you go. You change and evolve and grow, and then if you never shoot, you never know what you like.
Okay.
Because like I thought I wanted to shoot music videos. I hate music videos. Right? But if you never shoot, you don't know. You get a camera, just start shooting, and you figure it out. Never in my wildest dreams, when I picked up a camera in 2003, did I realize I would love shooting sports and sports documentaries or interviews and sitting down talking to a variety of people. I wanted to make movies at first, but I found a passion in something else. So you got to shoot and figure it out. I might thought I was going to shoot like model stuff too. Man, I don't even like them. But I would have never known if I wouldn't have experienced it. So I think it is, get your phone, whatever camera you have or you get, whatever it is you can get, go out and shoot. Because you know what? I'm gonna tell you this. People say marry the lenses, date the camera. You're gonna get a new one.
Yeah, you're always you're gonna upgrade your camera within, depending roughly. Some people update cameras every year or two. They just spending that money. Some people will update a camera every 5 years. That's when it matches their needs. You just got to figure out what you're shooting. And like I said, if I'm doing low budget projects, I would like to have 3 of the same camera, knock out shooting time.
Yeah.
Get what I want, put certain lenses on, 2 cameras and have another camera with a zoom lens. Put the primers on the 2 cameras and zoom on the other. And get what I want.
And what's funny about you even saying that, people will try to get 2 cameras and then don't even realize the problems that come with having 2 cameras, like time code.
Well, that's
right?
why I work with the same stuff, and you can match them because you just, yeah.
But I'm talking about other people, right? People want to go out and say, oh, I heard Mike say he shoots with 2 cameras. They go out there, time code doesn't sync, sound audio screwed up, because
I know your tools.
Yeah, that takes preparation and organization. And so, it's a lot. And it's little things sometimes that we overlook. But shoot, just go shoot. I don't care if it's a butterfly in the grass. Go shoot. Go in the park and shoot somebody's dog. See, I gotta go film. Go in the park and film, because somebody will take that one clip.
Yeah, create something different. Go film something.
Yes, go film.
Film. Maybe a few years back, Lewis had suggested this thing, and I did it. I don't know if you did, where we were to do like a 2.5 minute short. And it was really should have been like every weekend, do a 2.5 minute short or something, or when it was able to, and then just submit it. And we play them, we run them.
So we can do it monthly. What's up? What's popping?
We need to. You in school though? I need you to get done.
I've been shooting. I've been
For
shooting.
school. That's what I'm saying. You've been shooting for
Yeah.
school and stuff.
But that's still stuff.
Yeah.
I got some. I got a PSA I'm editing now. I'm working on. But I shoot every week. I just did a mini documentary, or it's something called The Creed. Like Delaware State got a new football coach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Like, here's the thing. I'm gonna go on my little thing. I gotta get ready to go soon. I
Yeah.
promise
I was
you.
about to say, I was trying to wrap up, but I'm gonna let you get your thing out. Go ahead.
This is the thing I love about shooting, and shooting just like some days it's not great, right? You go out there and the game is boring. You got to make it entertaining. It's all these things, and you got to come back and make something good. But some days you just walk into something that is amazing. So I went to the Delaware State spring game. The game was kind of boring, but at the end of the game, they had an old Delaware State football player address the team. And he said, "This is our creed. This is what we used to say." And he just started saying the creed and had the players repeat it back. And it just was magical. Because now I had the natural sound to lay under and mix up with the coach's interviews and lay B-roll on top of to come out with a small 1 minute piece. And now you just was like, I was sitting there the whole time. I was like, this sucks. This game was horrible. Because it was a spring game, it's vanilla. You know, it's the coaches. The game was okay. I shouldn't say it like that, but the coach was just doing what you do because it's really a practice,
Right.
right? And so I was just like, here we go. And then that happened, turned everything into something completely different. And I think Delaware State's going to be pretty good if the coach gets everybody together. But that moment transitioned that whole day.
That's powerful.
So,
all right. Do you have a 60-second gem you want to drop on them? Even though you dropped a bunch of gems today, I just want to let you know that. But,
shoot. Like, it don't matter what camera you have if you can't shoot.
There you go. I would say learn your whys. So learn the basics of shooting and filming, and then ask yourself, why are you doing this? You know, your shots are very important. Like, why do I want a close up? Why do I want this? It's usually, and know your reasons, because that's where your audience gets to read your story. Filming is a form of, it's a storytelling. It's literacy involved. It's comprehension. They're getting the story from you. So if you understand your whys, your audience will understand your why. Most of them. I'm not gonna say everybody, but most of them. So as we always say, be strategic, intentional, and authentic. And yes, we went long today, but I don't ever get Jacobi on all the time. My man's always working on his grind. And so it's good to have him on. And as you see, we can talk about this stuff
all day.
Because we do it. But we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. TK will be back. She's on her grind, doing her thing. Jacobi, my brother, I appreciate you, man. I've been blessed to have you on today, man.
Well, thank you, man. It's a blessing to be on. And you know how we do, man. Salute.
Always. Salute, man. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us here at the Black Filmmakers Lounge. It's Saturday morning indie industry shop talk. I'm your host, Michael Melvin. Once again, with my co-host today, Jacobi Simmons, and he's been hanging out. So, if you're in the Black Filmmakers Lounge, we're independent filmmakers. Here we try that one more time. The Black Filmmakers Lounge is where independent filmmakers, whether they're novices or professionals, come together to gain insight, perspective, through education, information, networking, and to discuss industry best practices that will advance the Black interdependent film community. We hope we've done that for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Follow the YouTube channel. Put this out to your friends. We know it was a long episode today, but we hope that we gave you something to think about. And we're going to talk about cameras again later at another time because that's a big deal. All right. We love you guys. Have a great one. Enjoy your Saturday. Go film something. And we out. Peace.